Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the gentle lady from the party list Bagong Henerasyon, Honorable Bernadette Herrera.
The
for her
Honorable
privilege.
Bernadette Herrera is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my fellow legislators, mga minamahal kong kababayan, magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. I rise on the occasion of personal and collective privilege regarding a matter that this representation believes to be quite urgent. But first, I hope this august body will allow me to quickly narrate a personal experience. I recently renewed my driver's license, which took me less than an hour to complete. The process was quite efficient, as the steps were mostly contactless and automated. While I was sitting in the waiting area, a number of my companions were recounting the comprehensive driver's education exam that they took prior to visiting the LTO and applauding its high-tech execution. As many of you may know, this exam is now also fully automated. Test takers are instructed to keep their heads as still as possible. Otherwise, the system will detect possibility that answers are being read on the side or that the examinee is being coached by someone. There's also an algorithm in place to make sure that no tests are identical in terms of sequence and question placements. In short, it is possible to have a ready-made answer key. I'm quite impressed that this technology is in place, Mr. Speaker. One of the people I chatted with, let's call him Mang Fred, told me something so candid yet so full of truth and pragmatic insight. Ma'am, yan ang pinakamagandang paraan para mabawasan ang mga kamote driver at kamote rider sa kalsada. Dati kasi kapag manual ang pag-e-exam, lahat pasado. Kahit walang alam sa pagmamaneho at traffic, makakakuha ng lisensya. Binabayaran kasi ang kodigo ng mga sagot. Dagdag pa ni Mang Fred, tao naman talaga ang problema sa kahit anong sistema. Oras na maglagay ka ng tao sa proseso, syempre parating may tukso na tumanggap sila ng lagay o mag-apply ng palakasan. Kaya tumatagal, humihirap at lumalaki ang gastos namin. Madam Speaker, not to over-dramatize or over-romanticize this brief conversation, but in a few heartfelt sentences, Mang Fred managed to summarize the wisdom and importance of automation and digital efficiency in government services. Indeed, the more ideal term is digital transformation, which by its very nature and definition seeks to minimize human intervention and contact, precisely to improve efficiencies and eliminate opportunities for corruption. Our Honorable President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself touched on this topic during his SONA, instructing the DICT to fast-track the digitalization of government agencies and to ensure that the information technology capabilities are at par with the latest technology. As PBBM pointed out, the forward progression is to go from manual to digital. I'm sure everyone would agree that under normal circumstances, to go from digital to manual is a clear step backwards. I was therefore quite surprised to learn that our Land Transportation Office, out of supposed frustration due to glitches happening in their provincial offices, is considering to overhaul its entire IT system infrastructure and replace its current systems provider. What particularly caught my attention is that the LTO chief, ASEC Teofilo Guadis, openly lambasted its existing IT supplier and in the same instance, actually commended the agency's previous contract holder. He even went as far as saying that the old supplier was, quote, welcome to bid for their previous contract. Should things go south, between the LTO and its current IT provider. Considering his position and the substantial amount involved in the contract, this statement may be considered imprudent or highly irresponsible, to say the least. If anything, it may give rise to public speculation on why the LTO appears to be in a rush to find a new IT supplier, or in this case, revert to a previous one, when they have a signed active agreement with an existing corporation. Ang bilis namang nilang makita ang kapalpakan, kakaupo pa lang nila. Ang bilis makita ng mga mali. Please note that I am not casting any aspersions on ASEC bodies. However, this is an issue that will affect millions of our countrymen. It is first and foremost worthwhile to examine if the glitches happening at the LTO are indeed the fault of its current IT provider. You see, Madam Speaker, there are reports on the field that these so-called glitches are actually taking place because LTO personnel are manually overriding the current IT system and introducing person-to-person transactions and procedures. While these are just reports for now, I think the irony is not lost on my esteemed colleagues that an IT system designed to minimize human intervention is now being accused of glitches because humans are overriding it. Kung totoo man ito, bakit kaya ino-override ang automated system at ginagawang manual ang transaksyon? I leave this as a rhetorical question as of now, Madam Speaker, but I think we all have a good idea what the motives are if these reports are true. Once again, it takes me back to my conversation with Mang Fred, who pointed out that nowadays, the LTO no longer charges interconnectivity fees for motor vehicle registration, driver's license transactions, and law enforcement and traffic resolution service transactions. Hindi tulad ng dati, ma'am. Basta may tao na magko-computer, may bayad. Sabi niya, noon ang daming fees na kung ano-ano. Hindi naman namin naiintindihan kung para saan yon, pero kasama daw sa processing. Pero ngayon, yung mga dating item na dagdag bayad, wala na. Apparently, Mang Fred isn't the only one who greatly appreciates this, since a number of stakeholders I consulted with also expressed the same sentiment. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, it appears that the manual overrides are not the only cause of the LTO's IT system woes. There seems to be a far more serious reason why the agency's current IT contractor cannot perform its duties and obligations to their full capacity. Based on the stipulations of the 2016 phase-out agreement that the LTO had with their previous supplier, Stradcom, the agency has full and complete ownership of all collective and individual databases. Consequently, Stradcom is required and mandated to turn over these crucial databases to the LTO and the supplier that replaced them. Upon initial inquiries, however, Stradcom has apparently not turned these over. It bears noting that according to audit figures, the LTO paid them a total of 7.53 billion during the last 4-year phase of their contract. Perhaps there are still unpaid dues that the LTO owes Stradcom. But regardless of the reason, the fact remains that the databases remain unreleased. Following Stradcom, the LTO awarded their IT system contract to its present supplier, Dermalog, a German company. Can you just imagine how crippled and debilitated their current operations are, given that they do not have databases to work with? It gets even more absurd, Madam Speaker. I have received reports that Dermalog tech representatives, data analysts, and systems engineers are literally not authorized to use basic working necessities. I repeat, they are not authorized to use basic working necessities. And I am talking about desks, tables, chairs, and everyday office fixtures whenever they visit various LTO satellite offices. Wala po silang magamit kahit isang gamit. Alam niyo po ba kung bakit, Mr. Speaker? Because apparently, under the terms of their previous contract, Stratcom owns all IT-related hardware and equipment, including workplace infrastructure. So anong magagawa ng Dermalog support staff kung wala silang maupuan, mapaglagyan ng gamit, o maiplug man lang sa extension cord na pag may maari ng dating supplier? Ipinagkaila na sa kanila ang databases, tinanggalan pa sila ng basic office necessities, mukhang may nadedehado. If we look at the big picture and weave these circumstances into it, therefore the glitches that Dermalog is being accused of suddenly take on an entirely different context. Parang lumalabas po, Madam Speaker, na pilit pinagbibintangan ng LTO ang kanilang kasalukuyang IT supplier ng kapalpakan upang bigyang katwiran ang pagbabalik ng dati nilang IT supplier. Yun pala, ang mga di umano'y kapalpakan ay hindi naman kasalanan ng kasalukuyang IT supplier. Kung mangyari man na mapalitan talaga ang IT supplier ng LTO, will their systems revert and undergo back to square one reboot? Will we see the return of manual transactions and collections? Won't these open doors for non-appearance and no-show transactions na naman? This will encourage and perpetuate corruption. Malaking ginhawa para sa ating mga kababayan noong tinanggal ang mga tingi-tinging bayarin sa LTO. Babalikan pa ba talaga natin ito? Yan ba ang nais ni LTO Chief Attorney Jose Guadis? I call on Attorney Guadis, paki-specify po and provide evidence. Ano po ba ang glitches na sinasabi ninyo? Gusto po naming maintindihan sa Kongreso. Paano po naging mas inferior ang automated sa manual? Bigyan niyo po kami ng eksplanasyong konkreto at hindi kung anong kwento. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, this representation believes that as the people's house, it is our bounded duty to look further into the matter by holding hearings to determine whether the LTO truly needs to consider replacing their IT systems provider. Ano po bang mangyayari sa mga frontline services that are fully operating using the new service provider? For example, yung driver's license renewal offices. If the old service provider is given preference, ano pong mangyayari sa interconnectivity ng mga driver's license renewal offices? Same with vehicle inspection centers who were required by their guidelines to build their IT system around the new service provider. Ano pong mangyayari sa mga medical clinics and driving schools? The positions of these stakeholders should also be sought, as any shift in the LTO's IT infrastructure concerns them directly, which in turn impacts the millions that these frontline agency partners serve on a daily basis. More importantly, we must ascertain if doing so will translate into tangible benefits for our countrymen or will end up as an additional burden, Madam Speaker. Huwag na po nating pahirapan ang ating mga kababayan. Life is already hard as it is. The facts suggest that the LTO may have other reasons for suggesting this course of action. In this regard, I encourage my dear colleagues to exercise our congressional powers of oversight so that we may, through investigation or remedial legislation, shed the necessary light on this issue. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the speech of the Honorable Bernadette Herrera be referred to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. So moved, Madam Speaker.
There's a motion. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended.